Colder trends along with an active storm track is setting up for Thanksgiving week into the early portion of December. We'll speak on Thanksgiving week first, and then we'll speak on December 2nd. My name is Mitch. Good Monday morning. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's talk about temperatures first. I'm going to start this off with Monday morning, November the 24th. So we're pretty much going to skip the week out ahead of us, which I think is just going to be dominated by a lot of warm air. And I think we're going to start Thanksgiving week with most of the country dealing with above average temperatures, which is reflected in the orange and the reds and the yellows you see on your screen. As we start moving to Tuesday, more of the same. And then we get into Thanksgiving Eve, November the 26th. Looks like some colder than average temperatures starting to move in. Just think of this blue and these greens as just colder temperatures. Let's not focus in on how cold these temperatures are right now because we're still kind of far out, but we'll get more detailed on that as we get a little bit closer day by day. But as we're starting to move into, the middle portion of the week, this is the 26th, that cold front looks to be dropping across the middle of the country. And we're looking at the Euro AI, by the way, which I think has done a really good job over the last several days, kind of sniffing out this first cold front. It called onto it first. Could be wrong. We'll figure it out this week, right? But I think that it's really locking into this. But as we start to get into Thanksgiving Day, November the 27th, it looks like a lot of cold air is dropping into the middle of the country. Now, is this extreme Arctic air, like record-breaking cold? I don't think so. But I mean, in the greens, that's, anywhere from 10, 15, in some cases 20 degrees below average. So, if your average high for Thanksgiving Day is 60 degrees, you might have highs in the 40s or something. So we continue to move forward, and this cold front looks to make it all the way into the eastern U.S. So we start to get into the last weekend of November. Look at this cold air showing up. This is just one model run. That is a lot of cold air for the central and eastern U.S. suddenly for the last weekend of November. If we go back a couple days, it was looking like this period was going to be locked in for the eastern U.S. just to be warmer than average to kind of end November. Looks like a pretty stout, potent cold front moving in. And, as we kind of round off the last couple days of November, still dealing with below average temperatures. But if you look at the last day here of the month, this is dangerous cold if it's correct. You see the Barney colors. I mean, guys, that's 25, 30 degrees below average. This is true Arctic air. So it looks like another cold front at the very end of the run, 14, 15 days from now, is dropping down. And this might be the Arctic hammer. We'll speak on that more as we go. And the actual operational Euro model shows this too. Starting off the week, next week, Thanksgiving week, with well above average temperatures for most of the country. And you can see that cold air. Now, the Euro wants to spill this more so across the western U.S. The Euro AI model kind of skips the western U.S. and goes right towards the middle of the country. But, this is Thanksgiving, for example. Looks like most of the central and eastern U.S., besides the northeast, dealing with warmer than average temperatures and a lot of cold, even Arctic air across the western U.S. Now, after we get through, to the last weekend of November, it does look like a big cold front begins to sweep across the country. And this is very cold air, very cold anomalies showing up here, 10, 20, 25 degrees below average. And that cold front does make it all the way to the southeast, the eastern U.S., but it's definitely a few days slower than the Euro AI model. But model guides really locking in to the idea of this first cold front. Now, as we start to get into December, it looks like a lot of cold air is kind of around. And the GFS, kind of a similar idea. Okay, these days are not going to be perfect, but warmer than average temperatures across most of the country. We take it all the way to Thanksgiving Eve. It's kind of a middle ground. And we get into Thanksgiving, and the GFS is just warm for Thanksgiving. It doesn't show a lot of cold air. I mean, you see some blues, but it's only a few degrees below average. It eventually does get a cold front going, but it just flat out skips the western and central U.S. and goes right towards the eastern U.S. So we get all the way out into the last Friday, November the 28th of the month, and we got below average temperatures sweeping across the country. So, and then at the very end, kind of like what the Euro AI model is showing, shows Arctic air spilling down to the western and then the central U.S. as we end November. The last evening of November shows a big, powerful cold front starting to dig down, and it's progressing eastward. We'll talk more about December here in a second. So what do you take from that? Well, if we look at the Euro ensemble here, which is one of the best things you can look at, it shows this is Thanksgiving. All right, Thanksgiving evening. It shows a battleground of temperatures, which we've been talking about that a ton, right smack in the middle of the country for Thanksgiving. It's cold in the west, it's warm in the east, and this is the dividing line of a pattern change. So what do you take from all this? Well, I think model guidance is really starting to lock in to a cold front towards the end of the month, Thanksgiving week sometime. How cold is this cold front? How cold is the air that this first cold front is going to bring? That's a big question we're figuring out. What's the exact timeline? We got to figure that out. And another thing I would take from this is that there's another cold blast following it, and I think that that could bring a lot of cold air. Now, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the experts not reflecting much of this, going with near normal or below average temperatures across the western U.S. between the 22nd to the 26th, so kind of several days leading up to Thanksgiving, and then the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. This is through the Thanksgiving time period all the way through the last weekend of November. Below average temperatures out west, and then above average temperatures in the east, with a middle kind of battleground of both in the middle of the country. I think some of this blue will start to come much further east in the next couple outlooks starting today into tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Any kind of significant storm systems in this time frame? I think there will be one. I don't know how high impact it's going to be. We got to figure that one out. Well, if we look at the Euro, check this out. Starting off Monday, we get into Tuesday. Does show some weather down here in the south central U.S. Some rain, maybe some storms. We'll figure out the details as we go. And this kind of slips through weekends, gets kind of smashed by a high pressure. And then watch what pops off the Rockies here. This is an all-out blizzard. And check it out, man. This is Thanksgiving evening. 992 popping off the Rockies. That's a deep low pressure. So all this blue, that could be a potential blizzard. Not saying that's the forecast for a blizzard, but watch out. It gets to a 989 as we're getting into Friday the 28th. Look at this heavy snow, clashing of air masses. It makes sense. It fits the pattern coming up. We could very well get thunderstorms, even severe weather on the south side this low, but it's 282 hours out, very far out, but I'm just monitoring this active pattern. And that's the big storm it's showing on the Euro. And just a closer look at this from my family out here in the middle of the country. Check this out. This is getting into Thanksgiving night, into the day after, Black Friday. Woo, that would be a party crasher right here for any Black Friday shoppers, if that's even really a thing much anymore. Most people do stuff online, but 989, that's a blizzard right there. Something to watch. And then it progresses into areas of Minnesota, Iowa, and then the upper Midwest. So what about the Euro AI model? Let's see if we got the latest 06Z. We probably do, and we do, so we're good to go there. This is just going to show precipitation, and we'll have to fast forward all the way to Thanksgiving week, but does show kind of what the Euro is showing, a system down here in the southern plains, southern Rockies. We'll have to watch this. This is Monday the 24th. Does it show what the Euro is showing as far as that big system coming off the Rockies? No, it just kind of shows some Clipper energy. Still a system down the southeast. This is Thanksgiving Eve, but it doesn't show anything high impact. So that's something to watch here, but it does show another big cold front at the very end. A lot of cold air dumping down. GFS, what does it show? It does show a storm system, kind of Thanksgiving Eve, but it's a weak low pressure. That would not be a high impact storm system. And then as we're getting to Thanksgiving night into the day after Thanksgiving, it does show a low pressure popping off the southeast and the eastern U.S. And, this could be something to watch as we're getting into the last weekend of November. 993, not a lot of cold air to work with, and it kind of moves in the cold air. But we'll have to see. So in general, I think just between now and the last day of November, a lot of precipitation has a chance to fall across this area of the country. The southern plains, up the Mississippi Valley, Midwest, Ohio Valley, Mid-South, western areas of the Deep South. Even into the Northeast. Now, this is accounting for what's going to happen between now all the way into next Monday that I didn't really talk about. I think most of this down here is rain. Okay, but what about the snow? Well, I think out west, you're going to have opportunities to get a lot of higher elevation snow between now and the end of the month. Several inches. But even after you get kind of past the higher mountain ranges and higher elevations, it looks to even show up here to the east also. So we'll move over here, and this is starting off Monday morning, okay, the 24th, beginning of Thanksgiving week. Watch how the gap feels up here. We get all the way into Thanksgiving, we get all the way after Thanksgiving, and then we just take it all the way to the evening of November the 30th. All of a sudden, this fills up here. So that symbolizes that pattern change to a more winter weather-like pattern, colder air, snow chances. That fills in very fast, pretty much the beginning of Thanksgiving week all the way to the end of November. Between now and next Monday, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot. Now, if you're looking up here across the eastern U.S., I just don't think there's going to be much of a winter-like pattern between now and pretty much the end of the month. But this is starting off next Monday. There is a little signal right here. This is really between now and the next 48 hours, and we'll speak on that when we go over the daily forecast at the end of the video. But, taking all the way through the end of the month, guys, I mean, you don't see much. A little lake effect snow action, little signal across the Ohio Valley, Mid-South, but not much there. And this is all backed up. A lot of precipitation, 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, 22nd through the 26th. If you live in the green area, that's where they're leaning towards above average precipitation. So this is where they're going with, a higher than not chance to see rainfall, or in some cases snow. And we go from the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, which takes us from the 24th to the 30th. Most of the country leaning towards a chance of above average precipitation. Okay, now let's go on and switch gears and start off where we just left off. And let's start off December 1st. A lot of people are wondering what's going to happen in December. There's a lot of chatter about it. Let's speak on it. So let's start off with the end of the Euro ensemble for December the 1st. It has a big trough over, the central to western U.S. This area in blue is a trough of low pressure. This is going to support a stormier pattern, and it's going to bring down colder air from the Arctic region. So if I draw on this a little bit, let's make it in black. All right, we got a ridge spiking up here. We got some blocking up here. Cold air is going to drop down into this dip in the jet. And there's probably going to be storm systems. There's a little bit of a ridge flex across the southeast. This will nudge into the eastern U.S. This will keep probably most of the southeast warmer than average to start December. Besides that cold front we need to watch. So just think of the blue. It's not, this is the pattern at 500 millibars. But you can think of the blue here as something that can bring colder temperatures and a stormier pattern. It's not always what it reflects to the surface, but most of the time it is. So as we continue to get to the end of the run, you can see that blue position itself over the middle of the country a little bit more. We look at the end of the Euro ensemble, same thing. Trough out west, and in the last couple little frames here that goes all the way into the evening in December 1st shows the same thing. Ridge over the eastern U.S., trough mainly over the western areas of the lower 48. And then you can also look at the GFS ensemble, trough out west, colder, stormier pattern, ridge over the eastern U.S. So what do you take from this? Well, you take that we're probably going to start December out warmer and maybe even a little drier in the eastern U.S. Western central U.S., probably colder. And when you have this blue area extending this far up into Canada, to me that tells me that we're getting a cold air source that's from the Arctic region, okay, which can be really cold air because it's coming from the Arctic. Sometimes you get cold air sources from areas of the Pacific. It's not as cold. It ain't going to do a whole lot. And this supports everything that I just talked about, temperatures, blasts of Arctic air. I think we can get multiple rounds of it because of this disruption in the polar vortex, sudden stratospheric warming, SW for short. And we got a lot of warming in the Arctic region in the upper levels, and you see this big blob of, orange, red, and white, and pink. Just think of this as warmer air way above the Arctic region. And when this happens, disrupts the polar vortex, dislodges cold air to the south. So this is starting off, Thanksgiving week, Tuesday, and I do think we'll have a big warming event Thanksgiving week up here, and then we can have a reinforcing kind of warming event. And I think this will be a maximum kind of warming event as we start to get into the last couple days of November. You see these much warmer than average temperatures and Celsius anomalies centered over this area of the Arctic. This is probably going to dislodge a lot of Arctic air even as we're getting into December. Kind of this first one right here is going to push a lot of Arctic air, and then this one right here could push even more Arctic air. So if we kind of follow that up with this, let's extend this deeper into November. And this is picking up where we just left off with all the other ensembles at the very end. 360 hours out, all the way out to December 1st, pretty much. you can see things begin to shift as we start to get more so into a few days into December. This thing kind of gets bowled out here. So at this point, as we're getting into, say, the first Saturday of December, okay, December the 6th, 7th range, locking up here, a lot of cold air coming down with this trough, and a little bit of a ridge flex over the southwest. To me, this is probably going to bring cold air more so to the central, to the eastern areas of the country. How far south does it get? Not quite sure, but you can tell how the kind of the orientation of this trough shifts from more like this to exactly what it's showing here. And this thing is broad, guys. This really tells me that a lot of Arctic air is dropping down. Just where does it drop down? Okay, and how far south does it drop down? I think is a huge thing. But as we continue, it looks like as we're starting to get into the mid-December time frame, a ridge begins to spike out in the west, maybe a little bit of what we call a positive PNA, ridging out west. And we start to see more of these blue, these lower heights, colder temperatures, more of a stormier pattern, positioning itself over the eastern U.S., ridging out west. And as we're starting to get like the week leading up to Christmas, I mean, it could really start to introduce a very winter-like pattern. A lot of people are chattering about kind of December 10th, December 15th time frame, where things could begin to shift. And I mean, the Euro Weeklies really supports this. I mean, if you're a southeast fan here and you want winter weather like me, you want these blues to kind of extend down here. But I mean, this is just the Euro Weeklies, all right? You got kind of the ridge here. We got this dip here, troughing, diving down, cold air. We get some type of active storm track kind of going like this, like that, the base of this trough. That's things we got to watch out for, but I think active times are ahead for the eastern U.S. It's just a waiting game. And in response to temperatures, if we look at the Euro Weeklies here, starting it off kind of the first couple of days of December, you can see the blue, which is below average temperatures, begin to ooze into areas of the Midwest, upper Midwest, Northeast. And we're still hanging on to above average temperatures kind of across the deep south as we get several days into December. But as we get into that mid-month time frame, you're starting to see more of the blues showing up over the eastern U.S. and a little bit further south. And, as we're getting closer to Christmas, this is kind of the week leading up to Christmas, you're starting to see just flat out more of the blue showing up over the eastern U.S. I'm telling you, there's a high peak for December, a high ceiling, and I really think that can be achieved for the eastern U.S., especially as we get closer to Christmas. So, yeah. And then you look at precipitation, guys, and you look at the pattern starting off December, and we go December 1st, and we go through the entirety of the month. And, where you see the yellows and the oranges, this is where we have a higher than not chance to see precipitation. You can tell how that begins to shift into the eastern U.S. as we start to get like 10 days into December. So it looks like what this tells me here is we got an active storm track across the eastern U.S. with a pattern that supports colder than average temperatures moving into that active storm track across the eastern U.S. It's kind of leaving the middle of the country. So you got above average precipitation setting up for December, especially later in December across the eastern U.S. You got a trend towards colder temperatures. You're probably going to get shots at winter weather deeper into December, and it sticks around through the length of the month. So, looking at the central U.S., this is between now and the next 15 days, right? That's your signal. We've already showed you this. This is going past 15 days. This is going 32 days out. You see that big difference here? I mean, you might think, well, it's winter. I mean, that's going to happen. And I would agree with you, but we're here to talk about winter, right? Just because it's winter doesn't mean we don't talk about cold and snow, right? That's one of the weirdest comments I see on things. But 15 days, 32 days. Big change, right? Eastern U.S., next 15 days looks pretty quiet, except favored areas. And then you extend this from, the 1st of December all the way to the middle portion of the month. It's a big change, right? All right. And then we extend this 46 days. Pretty much takes us all the way through December. That's a big change right there. Look at that. Look at that. Really begins to drop south. In fact, this is probably one of the better Euro Weekly runs that we've had over the last several days. And a big thing that, we've talked about is this MJO, right? And this is the part that can confuse people, but I'm going to keep it as simple as possible for you. And let's make sure we got here. So This is forcing in the atmosphere, MJO pulses, things like that, all right? We got 6 here, 5, 4, 3. These phases, well, actually, let's get this off, start over. These phases right here, 7, 6, 5, 4. These are warm phases. Phase 7 will work for areas of the country, and it's going to. We're about to really fully enter phase 7 over the next couple days. As we get past this jumbled up mess, we could still get shots of cold air, especially for the northern areas of the lower 48. And in phase 4, 5, and 6, we can still get shots of cold air. We just saw one early last week, right? So just because we're in these warmer phases doesn't mean we can't get cold air. But I can tell you, phase 6, which is what we're in right now, is a really warm-dominated phase for the entire lower 48, which is exactly what we're experiencing for the most part right now outside the Northeast and a couple small areas of the country. So if you look here, it says 6, 8, 10. This is November, right? The black area right here, November. All right, everything gets jumbled up right into here. And this looks to be locked in. We're just going to kind of get a jumbled up mess. It looks like it's just the MJO is going to struggle to get from 6 to 7. Okay? Now you see this 29 right here? That is November the 29th. Okay, and we're actually going, what we're going to do here is we're going to see if we have an upgrade of this. And click on this, and we're going to do this. And we don't. So still the 15th, that's fine. All right, so you see the 29th, that is of this month. So we're going to, at the end of this month, we're going to fully begin to enter phase 7. That one right there, that's December the 1st. Okay, so from the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th. That's of December. Phase 8, 1, 2, and 3. These are the colder phases. Phase 8 is the glory cold and wintry phase for December especially. And it looks like we're going to work our way slowly but surely into phase 8 as we get into about the middle portion of December. This supports widespread cold and winter weather chances, even to the south, especially in December. So there's a chance, phase 8, phase 1 especially, that we could slow ride this MJO pulse, this MJO phase, through the glory phases, through the most favorable climo time of the year, late December, the shortest days of the year, early January, maybe even further. There's a chance that we can just slow ride this through one of the best times for winter weather of the year. We just got to be patient. We got to work our way through phase 7 over the next several days, and it might take the first 10 days of December. So we just got to be patient. But this is why most of the country is going to be warm for the next almost 2 weeks, depending on where you live. Some areas, maybe just a week. So we'll continue to figure that one out. As far as today's weather, guys, we do got snow. If we can get this in motion here, we got snow across areas of the Northeast, waking up to some festive flakes flying around with some troughing in place, some cutoff energy over the western U.S. and extreme western U.S., the West Coast. We continue to have a funnel of moisture going across California, things like that. Middle of the country, southeast, southern tier of the country continues to be void of any active weather. We got winter weather alerts, winter weather advisories in the purple, winter storm warnings up for areas of the New England. Dense fog advisories, across areas of the country. And we got winter weather alerts, some wind alerts out west. Risk of thunderstorms today, nothing really severe expected, at least. It could still be possible. The light green, general risk of thunderstorms, same thing across areas of the southwest. And any kind of risk of flash flooding. LA, Southern Cal, watch out for flash flooding in this area. Southeast today, beautiful weather. Nothing crazy. Continues to be very dry. Just doesn't seem to like to rain much anymore these days here, at least where I live here in South Carolina, but I'm sure a lot of other people could agree with that. We're going to continue to get this trapped low pressure up in Canada. This continues just to bring a lot of active weather up here. But we could still continue to have some lake effect snow bands coming off Erie, Ontario through the evening hours. And honestly, this could last all the way into tomorrow. And then we're going to have a system that's going to move in. And this could be a little tricky system. Some heavy wet snow possible with some lingering cold air. But this is really getting into tomorrow. South central U.S., push of moisture. but you're south of any kind of storm system, so another quiet day expected. North central U.S. could have some active weather today. Low pressure moves in. You can see the moisture coming up later tonight, and I really think this will move into a little bit of cold air, especially as we're getting into tonight, into tomorrow. So you see these blues and these pinks. It's a wintry mix of some heavy snow, wintry mix of maybe some sleet, maybe a little freezing rain, but I think this will mainly be snow. But you can see this band with what I think is going to be some pretty heavy snow that will waken up tomorrow morning in areas of southern Minnesota, central, south central Wisconsin, and maybe even lower Michigan. And I do think this could drop a slushy few inches of snow. In fact, snowfall forecast for southern Minnesota, Rochester, maybe an inch or two of snow between now and the next 48 hours. And then, you look in Wisconsin. And, Madison, inch or two. Janesville, an inch. La Crosse, inch or two of snow. So certainly could get a little bit out of this. And we drop it down into Michigan. And a little dusting amounts possible. Slushy snow. Western U.S., a lot of moisture moving into California. Lower elevation, rain. Higher elevation, snow. Temperatures, very cold in the Northeast. Continue to be locked into winter. Southeast, chillier with some cold air filtering down. It's a chilly start, 39 degrees at my house currently after an 80-degree day yesterday. Deep South, warm. Chilly up here in the northern terrain of the country. South central U.S., warmer. It's a little cooler across the western U.S. though, but definitely just continues to be an extension of summer down here in the southern plains. But that's all I got. Let's make this our timestamp and let's do a little Bible devotion real quick. I'm running a little behind, so we'll get straight to the point here. This morning we are in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. It says, "Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. For this is the law and the prophets." For this is the law and the prophets. Golden rule, right? So I wrote, treat others the way you would want to be treated. We've all heard that, right? This is a standard for Christian living. Should be a standard for just living in general, right? Live a life that is pleasing to God. We are called to have a higher standard of love for everyone we come across in our daily life. This is a command, not a suggestion. I do believe by default most of us are selfish. The only way to fight that off is to constantly strengthen our relationship with Jesus. The more you do this, the more you want to do it. I know that's kind of a tongue twister. The more you do this, the more you want to do it. But it's true. The more you do the right thing and do the things that are pleasing to God, the more you're going to want to do it, and the easier it becomes. And the only way that you're really going to just naturally, the only way that you're going to want to do it more is to strengthen that relationship with Christ. Some people are just nice people. Some people just have a knack to go all out at everything they do. They strive for perfection. Sometimes that can work against you. Whatever it may be. Everybody has, some things that they struggle with, some things they are really good with. But anyways, it's a command, guys. Think about it like this. I mean, for me with customer service, I work with, sometimes people come in and they got a really bad situation. They need a part, and they're explaining their situation. They need this part, but at the end of the day, I already know the answer. I can't really help them that much because the part they're looking for, we don't supply. I can't even look up because it's what you call an OEM part. You have to get it from the make of the truck. And, really just to get out of the situation fast, I could tell that person, nope, we don't supply, man. Sorry, buddy, can't help you. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I fail at it. But lately, and over the last couple of years, as I've strengthened my relationship with Christ, I try to help the person, try to give the person the phone number of the place you can get it to. Heck, sometimes I'll even try to call the dealer for them and say, hey, they have it. They're holding it for you. Go over there and get the part. It relieves stress on this person because that person's probably going through a very stressful situation. Something might have broke on their truck. And, we shouldn't throw them the cold shoulder, right? And say, yeah, we don't supply. Have a good day. Bye. So that's just an example of my daily walk in life with the job that I do. But anyways, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning.